following thoughts, opinions, stories, and expressions are meant for those who will appreciate them. If you don't, we hope you keep an open soul to encounter another here on 34 Questions. Peace.
Okay.
In 3, 2, 1. What's going on, folks? Welcome to 34 Questions. I'm your host, 34, and tonight we have a very special guest. Dr. St. Roseman is in the building. How you doing, Doc?
I am doing fine. What a pleasure it is to be here on your show. I look forward to our conversation.
As do I, or as I am. For the folks out there who don't know, Dr. St. Roseman was one of my mentors and one of the adults in my life that I feel like have left an impact way back when, back in my high school days. So I want to thank you. And for the folks out there who are unfamiliar with the flow of the show, we do some intro questions, some warm-up questions just to set the tone. We'll jump into the main interview where we'll turn to the Wheel of Fate. And then after that, we'll finish it off with a few closeout questions. Sound good to you?
Sounds perfect. Let's do it.
All right. Well, I know I asked you how you're doing, but let me ask you all this time in between, how have you been? You've been doing well? You've been doing great? How you been lately?
You know, I've been good. I've been really, really great. Despite the pandemic, and we know a lot of people have lost their lives, so it's really given me an opportunity to reflect on those things that we take for granted and just be happy that I am here. I'm with family and adjusting to this new way of life. So no complaints.
For sure. I'm glad to hear you're doing good. Are you still in the Bay Area, or you moved out of here? Got pushed out maybe?
No, I love the Bay Area, so I'm still here. I'm still right in front of the lake, Lake Merritt. So I love the Bay Area. I think I'll always find myself in the Bay Area.
So throughout this conversation, I think I'm going to try to fit in some questions I've always wanted to ask you. And
okay.
And I don't know, maybe you've told this before and it's been just a long time, but are you originally from the Bay Area, or did you move out here and settle down out here?
No, I'm not originally from the Bay Area. I'm actually from the Caribbean. I'm from a small island, St. Lucia in the West Indies, and I immigrated to New York City at the age of 7. And I grew up in New York City, and then I came out to California right out of undergrad. I came out with my boyfriend at the time. He was doing law school out here. And then I always say that the goal of me being out here in California was to actually meet my husband.
I got you.
So yeah, but I love them. I find that the Bay Area is a confluence in terms of the topography, a confluence of the island and New York, that metropolitan feel.
So you feel like it's a little mix of that? Or?
Oh yes. Still have access to the ocean, even though it's Caribbean. The Caribbean Ocean is quite different. The Caribbean Sea is quite different from the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans out here. But from the Pacific Ocean out here and the Atlantic in New York. But still, I love being by the water. I love the climate. I just love it. I love it out here.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely something. I knew you were from the islands. I've now that I started remembering a little bit, but it was great to kind of hear your migration story. My next warm-up question for you is, what would you like the audience to know about you? For the folks who don't know you, what would you feel like is important to say about yourself?
Wow, what would I like people to know about me? Hey, I think I'm an educator through and through, right? And I'm not. I was see myself as like a rogue educator, right?
Okay.
Push kids to push the boundaries, question what they're being told or asked. But I think most of all, what I think I'd like people to know about me is that I am a huge lover of animals. I love animals, and I'm not sure if I should say this, but if I have to say an animal or human being, I think the human being's out of luck. That animal is, I'm going all in for the animal.
I got you. Well, what would you say what it is about animals that kind of draws you to them? I know for me personally, anytime I look into the eyes of an animal, it just kind of feels like there's some soul. Like I believe in the soul, so yeah, it makes me feel like yeah, that's happening. I mean, for you, well, how would you describe it?
Same thing. Same. This is the soul. And I think that it's this life, and I feel I don't see ourselves as being any greater than any living thing, right? I don't operate from that space. And I think that there's so much joy that animals bring to us, and I'm and I and I feel human beings can be so cruel to animals, but I like you, I do believe that they have this soul. Like you can really look into it, and the nonverbal communication is just phenomenal.
And what's funny about that is that there's animals that I feel like I can connect with right away, and then there's some animals that I just feel like, oh, they're not gonna like me no matter what I do. So I feel like that soul and personality is in there. You know,
Hmm.
there's some kind of energy or vibe that's being exchanged, and even though I don't know because we can't communicate, like I'm being
True.
sized up by the animal too. You know, like,
Yeah.
oh, can I?
Hmm.
So it always feels good.
Exactly.
It always feels good when
Hmm.
a dog, and especially a cat, like comes to me, and I'm like, oh snap, they recognize what I'm trying to bring to them, and that always makes me feel good. Feels like
No,
an extra sense.
I'm with you on that. I didn't think I would like. I grew up having dogs as a young child, and I actually found a stray cat when I moved to California. It was Ashley who named it Justice, and I because I didn't think cats had personalities, but they have quite a bit of personality, and so I have dogs and cats now.
How many, if you don't mind me asking?
I have two dogs, two cats.
Gotcha. Oh, even size.
Yep, yep.
Are they've been a handful, or you pretty much are able to handle them pretty well?
This is their space. Like I tell people when they come to our home, this is the space of the animals. So they've been a joy. I wouldn't say a handful. They've been a joy.
I gotcha.
Mhm.
My next question for you is, if I were to do something in your honor, a way to express the energy you possess, what could I do?
I would say helping people.
Mm,
Um, I think it's really important. I look at the homeless situation that just exploded, and I think anything that would have to be done in my honor would have to be in terms of how do you help? How do you think beyond your own personal needs and extend that to someone else?
mm.
And so, whether it is housing someone who's homeless, um, um, doing something amazing for a sick child, working with animals, it's helping.
I got you. Now we
Hmm.
know. Now we know what we could do.
Yes.
And I'm kind of curious as far as the homelessness problem, or not problem, but issue. What's what do you see as like the best way to kind of approach it? Or let me ask, should I give someone who's asking for money, or is there what could I do that would kind of support them other than just throwing them cash?
So that's a twofold question. I believe in like when I see homeless people, I will give them money. I have friends who have a totally different position, and they're like, "No, I'm not giving them money. I'll go and buy food and da da da." And I feel that we still need to maintain the dignity of people, and it is up to them to choose what they do with the money. Some may feed themselves, some may give it away, some may use it for other vices, but that's the choice that they can make. So I personally believe that in giving them money, but in terms of addressing the homeless situation, I think that looking at it more broad in terms of how do you provide comprehensive services for the homeless? How do we address the needs, because you're not just looking at folks who need housing, you're looking at folks who need healthcare, folks who may need mental health services, folks who may need to learn how to acquire new skills or get back into the job market. So it's really providing comprehensive services that can be addressed systemically so that it is sustainable over time.
I got you. At the end, remind me to to tell you what my big idea is to
Okay.
to help homelessness. It's pretty far fetched, but I think you've always known I'm kind of a big dreamer. So we'll get to that later. And my last question for you in the warm up is, on a scale from 1 to 10, how well do you know yourself?
10.
Just the absolute max? Yeah.
It is absolute. You know why? Because I am extremely introspective, extremely reflective. And so I'm always looking at my strengths, my challenges, and I often I'm a person who looks at the glass half empty. So I'm always looking at, well, what's wrong? What do I need to improve? What do I constantly need to improve? It makes people quite uncomfortable.
Mm.
And what I had to learn over time that folks discomfort, I had to become okay with that, because I didn't need for it to inform how I process through whatever it is that I'm going through. For example, I'm a person, like, if I'm going through a challenge and pain and I'm in deep pain, I like to go through that pain. I do. I like to just experience and go through it. And those who are around me often don't know how to support or what they should do or what they should say. And some try to ignore it. And I'm like, no, I'm not trying to ignore what I'm dealing with. I need to be able to process through it. I think I know myself extremely well.
I was going to ask you, how did you get to that 10? I feel like that's what everyone's kind of, getting to. So one of the things about being a 10, another conversation I've had with another guest is like, are we truly a 10 when it's hard for us to even see how other people perceive us? Like there's that part of knowing yourself and then knowing how other people see you. So to make the complete picture, do you feel like you're pretty aware of how others see you too? Like this, through your experience?
Yes, I am very aware of how people see me, and it's quite counter to how I see myself. So, for instance, I think in my work as an educator, I think people see me as authoritarian, which I am. I think the piece that most bothers me about what people think, I think because people think that I am authoritarian, they think that I am inflexible, and I'm extremely flexible, and perhaps a little too flexible. And I think because flexibility and authoritarianism do not quite align itself in the minds of people, and so it's a matter of the ascriptions people try to place on you based on what is, but I think, and it's in the context in which people know me. I remember I bumped into a colleague from years ago. We were on this week-long houseboat, and she said to me, she's like, "Oh my God, I didn't know you was so much fun," and so and I'm like, okay, and I think it's because I do compartmentalize in terms of when I'm at work versus when I'm home and with family and partying. And so I am very aware of the contradictory ways in which I think people see me. But it took me, I wasn't aware of, like, when I was with you all with Smash, I wasn't aware of that then. I think, Frida was one of the people who brought it to my attention. Some other individuals in my work life brought it to my attention. I started paying attention to it, and I was like, oh, okay.
I gotcha. Yeah, you mentioned you said that you were a rebel educator. What do you kind of mean by that, if you don't mind me asking?
I think it depends on the context, right? Of where I've worked in all realms, in elite private schools, and in the independent schools, in parochial, in charter, in public, and in particular when I think about being in public and charter schools, right? I think about working with Black and brown kids, and oftentimes those students are taught to more or less be automatons or receptacles of information without pushing and questioning where that information is coming from, which is in contrast to elite academic environments, which are predominantly white, right? Where those students are, they're coached, in terms of you must question. And so for me, with working with Black and Brown students in under-resourced communities, right? I tend to push them to, you have to question what you're being taught. And I often say to kids that we, as educators, we teach from our own biases as well. And so do not assume that because we stand before you that we don't have our own biases. We don't have our own shortcomings. So you must question, you must push the boundaries.
For sure. I think that's what you just said there is a good reminder for me as far as like teaching from biases, because I am in youth work. I know I didn't tell you that, but I am currently I'm gonna start a new job in like the next week or so. Another new job.
Congratulations!
But I'll be training to be like the site coordinator for an after school program for a high school. And I'm pretty excited because it was a job that I ran away from 4 years ago. I was kind of in line to take the position, but I was like, I don't think I'm ready for the responsibility. And so I dipped out, and it's been one of my biggest regrets. So it's been really it's been a redemption arc for me to get a call back and say, hey, position's open, would you want to apply, and kind of like go through it. And now I'm on the path to do that, and I'm so excited to jump back in and into those shoes. So
that is so great. I'm
excited. I'm excited. I don't know. It took me a long time to figure out, what was important for me, and I've been in a bunch of different industries, but nothing fulfilled me more than youth, like working with the youth. So for you, when did you kind of realize that for yourself, where you're like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
I don't know if it's for the rest of my life. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to assume. Yeah, I don't mean to assume that.
But I remember when I was in undergrad, right? And my goal was to actually, as a young kid, was to be a pediatrician, right? Okay. And then when I was in undergrad, I loved psychology. So I was like, oh, maybe I should pursue that, which my father did not agree with. And however, when I started undergrad, there was this, one of my advisors, Dr. Hoyt, and she was from Trinidad. And she said to me, she said, Irene, you should go into education. And I was like, Dr. Hoyt, absolutely not. These American kids are rude. You can't hit them. Absolutely not. So I went into education kicking and screaming. And I often say that I was fortunate that education selected me. And so when I came to the Bay Area, there was a program. I did two things. I spent a day at San Francisco General Hospital because I was, again, still thinking of pursuing medicine. And just spending that day, I was like, no, don't want to do that, right? And then there was this program, I can't remember the multicultural, I can't remember the full name of it, but it was taking educators of color and putting them in elite schools to address, issues of diversity. And so that's how I started teaching. I started teaching at Head Royce here. And I was the only Black teacher in the upper school, and probably one of 3 Black people at the time at that school in the early 1990s. And so my journey through education, I've always, I don't know, again, I just feel like I've been blessed. I've been blessed that education has selected me. I love working with high school students. They drive me nuts, but I love the craziness of high school students in particular. And when they begin to make that shift and begin to get a sense of who they are and get to explore and kind of, again, push those boundaries in terms of who and what they want to become and just their own maturation over time. I love I love being a part of that, and I love watching young people go through those various processes.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. I think that's a similar draw for me. Is
Mhm.
I know you're familiar with the phrase, be the person that you needed when you were young, right? And that's what kind of brings me back, is that it's not that I didn't have supportive people in my life growing up, but I know that if I had been more open as a high school student and been more, I guess I didn't put in as much as I should have. And that's like one of my
Mhm.
biggest regrets. It's a lot of like second guessing myself, not really having the confidence to fail. So like I kind of
Mhm.
want to instill that with kids now. It's like, yo, it's okay. Like I'm here with you and we can get through this. Like I want you to fail now.
Yes.
So, you can see that there's bigger things after that, not so
Mhm.
be afraid about the failure. So yeah, I will probably ask you more questions about how to deal with not having enough resources, but
Yeah.
we could save that save that for another day. Um,
Okay.
well, we made it to the main interview,
Mhm.
and we will turn to the wheel of fate. Here we go.
All right. Okay.
Oh, oh,
Mhm.
there we go.
There we go.
um,
There we go.
and just as a reminder, if there's any question that makes you feel uncomfortable or you'd rather not answer, feel free to pass. But
Okay.
to number 3, and you had mentioned earlier that you don't mind just going straight to the hard level.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Um, so number 3, how would you define depression?
Of course, I would get that question. I don't know. I think I would not do a great job defining depression, because I think I
Hmm.
would simplify depression. Um, hmm.
It's just from your point of view. I know you're not speaking for anyone else but yourself, and I
Exactly.
want to
Exactly.
let the folks
How
out
would
there
I?
know too. Yeah.
Yeah. This is yes. This is, please do not follow my definition. But if I look at it in terms of my operating definition, depression, I would say depression is I would define it in terms of going through a difficult time and feeling like there's no way out of it, and that there's no one around to support you. And
Mm.
it's almost like it's hitting a brick wall and just being unable to penetrate that wall. That's how I would define depression in its most simplistic terms.
No, for sure, for sure. I
Mhm.
thank you for answering, and I know for me, I'm the same kind of way where I would try to simplify something, and I I would say there's folks out there who always kind of grill me on it, like it's not that simple, which I understand. It's just
Mhm.
coming from our experience, right? And for you, if what advice would you give anyone that might be going through a depression? I don't even want to call it a phase. I feel like phase is not the right way to say it, but going through
Mhm.
depression, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would seek help. I believe in meeting with counselors. I believe in getting support. And so I would say, talk to someone, especially in communities of color. We have a difficult time talking to counselors, and talking through whatever it is. And I would say utilize the resources, because it is, the help is out there, and we have to be willing to get that help. And even if you don't know how to get that help, at least just be able to say to someone, I feel depressed, so I feel down, and I'm looking for help, I'm looking for support. And I think there's so many people who would be willing to help.
For sure, for sure. Thank you for your answer, and I know it's sometimes a difficult thing to talk about these things, but thank you for being open.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Let's give it another spin. Here we go.
Okay.
Ooh, number 14. Here we go. Number
Mhm.
14,
Okay.
hard.
I need to put some light on in here.
Oh yeah,
Once,
yeah.
well, give me 1 second. Let me just mute myself for a quick second.
Go for it.
Okay.
All right. So number 14. This one's a little personal, maybe a little invasive, but what's the worst thing you've ever told yourself?
What is the worst thing I've ever told myself? The worst thing.
No worries. I mean, they're hard
No. I
questions.
have
They're
to
hard
think about
questions.
that one. Yeah, the worst thing I've ever told myself. I think the worst thing would be I'm not good enough, and I'm trying to think of an example, right?
That's good that you can't think of an example. So you must have like flipped that switch real quick, you know, like.
I probably did. I did, but I think it's yeah, I think it's just basically I'm not good enough. Like if I'm trying to, if I wish I can get an example. I know what I in my 20s, in my early years, like I never wanted to be an administrator, a school administrator. I don't like it. I did not think that I was, because I knew I wasn't a traditional educator, and I like to push the boundaries and kind of break the rules. I never thought I could be a good administrator, because I don't like, I think there's so many things about education that has to be revisited and revamped. And so I didn't think I would be one who would be able to follow the status quo as an administrator. And so, for instance, let's say, again, this is probably before you were born, like, so way back in the early 90s, when in certain schools it was just drill and kill, right? You just had to tell a kid what to do, and they couldn't give you any feedback. And I was just so anti that, right? And
Gotcha.
So in being an administrator, I would tell my teachers, I would say, don't do it. So I used to think that I couldn't be a good administrator, and I found out I was actually a damn good one.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, as when we saw you as the director of our program, I think like you would dig deep with us, or try to like figure out what our thought process were. And I could only speak for myself, but it did feel intimidating a little bit, because I thought that's all I had to know. That's all I had to think about. But you kind of challenging us to think more about it, made me really think, like, well, it really expanded my thing, or got me comfortable with also thinking deeper, and the reasons why sometimes, or like what's more than that too. No, for sure. I think you delivered that to us for sure. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've heard it from the people who've worked with you and people who've worked under you, that it felt like you really had great leadership. And even from the kids' perspective, I think, like, even though you said you were authoritative, and yeah, I would agree with that, but for some reason it always felt like there was love behind it. It wasn't like, you were being authoritative because of your ego or anything like that. It really felt like it was coming from a place that was warm. And I think that's why, no matter how intimidating you were, like as a kid, we were still trying to like get to know you as a person, because it felt like there was more to just than that, than the face you were showing us. So yeah, I don't know if you remember, well, we talked about this the last time I seen you about 12 years ago, but it was that moment where you kind of like, you brought, because we were complaining, we were kids, we were trying to say like things were unfair, and you kind of laid the hammer down on us, but you said it was already pre-thought, as far as like which kids you were setting up for everybody else to kind of believe, like, oh, this is real, like this shit is like really happening. And it changed our behavior, changed the way we were working at the time. It whipped us into shape, I'll tell you that. How did you come up with that? Was that like all from your creative mindset, or was it kind of like a team effort where, I don't know, as a staff, did you guys come together, like, how are we gonna nip this in the bud kind of thing?
It's, it comes from experience. It really does. Because I think when I was with you guys, 30s, early 40s. And it's, after you work with kids for a while, you get to learn the different personalities, and you also get to learn which kids you can push in what sort of settings, right? And as well as, we had such an incredible, I love the team, the staff that I worked with. And many of them were young. Some of them were probably like 5, 6 years old, just 5, 6 years older than you all. And so it's that collective mind together as you learn about different kids, and staff members tell you what they have learned, and then thinking about then what's the environment that we can create, and how can we get the kids to, because I always believe in this young people taking control of their situation and taking control of whatever academic environment they're in, even though we kind of corral you guys into how to move within that. But we do want you to feel like you are discovering this new sense of self, or you're creating these opportunities for self, right? And so it's a lot of thought, it's a lot of experience, and it's and some of it came from earlier years as a young educator, making mistakes and learning, not making the assumption that every child you can approach in the same way. There's some kids that you can really push them. There are kids where it's a constant negotiation, and it's a give and take. So that's how we worked with you all, by really getting to understand who you are, observing you, even laughing at some of the things that you all got in trouble about. I mean, we didn't tell you about it, right?
Yeah.
But we would, we'd have the face like, "Can you believe this?" And then when you all were sleeping, we were like, "Oh my God, wasn't that funny though?" But I was so mad. But,
Yeah, I'm definitely on that side now, on the other side of that. So I know what you mean. And I think you have a lot of experience in this sense. The next question for you is, how do you build a team? Like, I think that's going to be a part of my job, going forward. What do you look for? What's important to you when you try to formulate a team?
I think you build a team very intentionally. And I think in a lot of organizations, people assume that you just pull people together and it's a team. And that does not make a team. I also think there's the flip end of the pendulum where folks are like, "Oh, it's all kumbaya," and that does not make a team. It really is. For me, in building a team, I think it's important as a leader to operate from your authentic self. And so one of the things that I do with my team, and I actually been criticized by even when I was in Smash by colleagues, is that I allow people to see my strengths and my weaknesses. And I remember when I was working with Smash, some of my colleagues were like, "Well, Irene, you should let them see your challenges, and that does not make a good leader." And I just don't believe in that. And I think that you have to be able to let people. Leadership is so nuanced. It is not binary, right? And there are areas in which we have to make some difficult decisions. And so giving team members the opportunity to experience the various aspects of leadership, allowing them to take the lead, where you don't always, as the leader, you don't always have to be in the front. You can lead from behind. And so creating the space for people to take the lead while you're still supporting them from behind, allowing them to provide different ideas, and having them be able to talk about their successes and their failures, and also being able to say, like, one thing that I think people get confused about with me as a leader, I'm like, I want to hear what you have to say. Let's talk about X, Y, and Z. And someone might give an idea, and it may not be the right thing at that time. And I'll say, "Well, no, not yet." And I think people often confuse, when there is flexibility, when you have a leader who's flexible, that means yes for everything, and it's not. It's not. So being able to really get your team members to understand the nuances, I think it's important to I think integrity. You have to have integrity. You have to be honest with people, and I operate from the place that people come first, right? So, for instance, if there's something happening with someone's family and they need some time off, I'm not a stickler for, oh, you need to sign this paper and you did X, Y, and Z. I'm like, go take care of your family. We will handle things. Now, people take advantage of that. I still think even when people take advantage of that, it is best for me to operate from my best self as a leader, because those pieces are important to me. So it's that constant communication with your team, the constant struggle, being able to struggle things through with your team. And what I also say to my team is that even though they may be specialists in different areas, they're also generalists, that we have to work together. You may have to do things that you don't want to do, but for the sake of the team, you have to be able, you have to do it.
I got you. I'm gonna have to re-listen to this conversation, because I know that first time I have to address the team. Like I really want to come off. I mean, first I just want to bring my authentic self. That's my main priority. But as far as like one of the main reasons why I left, or I ran away from the opportunity 4 years ago, is that I felt like I couldn't say no. I was very like, let me find out what you enjoy doing, and I'm a help you specialize in that, and it'd be really hard for me to be like, well, yeah, there's going to be a time where I might need you to step into someone else's shoes, not forever, but in times of need, we're going to have to be able to do that. And yeah, it was like, my personality, I'm a people pleaser kind of person, so just having, for me, like, I want to be able to communicate that with my team, and hopefully they can see it in me. And I guess it's part of my youth work too, where like, I'm not very authoritative with the youth. My approach to it has been kind of like, let me show you that respect, let me give you that rope, and hopefully when I really need you to do what I say, that you respect the fact that I've given you like that respect, and you can realize it for yourself. It's been working so far, but I know it doesn't work all the time, and maybe I've just gotten lucky with the kids I've been working with, where they can understand that from me. But yeah, I kind of have to play those different roles. Like, that's something I'm worried about. Yeah, go ahead.
But I think it's important, right? I don't think you have to operate outside of yourself, right? And this is what I learned when I hire staff, and I often try to hire staff that are quite the opposite from me in personality. Like, I don't want to hire someone, I'm a yeller, I'm a screamer, but I'm also very nuanced. So that same child that I can yell and scream at, I can hug and be, extremely compassionate. And people don't understand that, because I live in the gray. And so it always, when I see staff who try to mimic me, and they're like, no, 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 I'm like, no, I do not want you to do that. There's a thing that I often say to my staff: firm but kind, right? But you still have to operate. If you are a person who's soft-spoken, or just has a totally different approach with kids, work from your from who and what you are, because young people, they read that too. They'll easily say, oh, you're a fake, or you're trying to be X, Y, and Z. And so that's why I love to have a team that have diverse approaches with young people, so that students, because youth, whether you're working in an after-school program or in a school, they should be able to have an adult within that space that they feel that they can connect to. That is their person, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and because we are so nuanced in our interactions, then we have to have a staff that's also diverse and nuanced in their interaction with youth as well.
I got you. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for running down that with me. Oh, and I know we haven't gone to the wheel in a few minutes. I do have one more education question for you, and it's, how have you seen education change from working in the early 90s to how it is now? Is there anything maybe for me going into youth work that I should kind of focus on or be aware of that has changed through time?
Oh, I think the pandemic has changed education in the in in a way that students are, I mean, they were questioning before in terms of, like coming to this building and I'm taking 6, 7 classes, and why am I taking these particular classes, and what's the long-term benefit? I think because of the pandemic and so many kids were online for so long, right? Students are now thinking, well, hey, there's some things that I can teach myself. There's some classes that I don't need to take, and that we need to rethink and reframe education. So I think education is going to change in a way that what more progressive educators have been trying to do for years, which is how do you educate without walls, right? That being in a school building does not necessarily mean that you are educating kids. And education is something, we're learners. We are learning all the time, whether it is sitting outside in the park, conversing with friends, or going to the museum, or going to the library. And how do we get to integrate our daily life and interaction with how we look at what learning needs to look like? And I think if we're able to do that, we can then, I think it'll help shift our perspective so that we have multiple perspectives in how, what we think about education, and how do we engage education globally. So this thing of going to a building, being in school from, I don't know, 7 to 5 or whatever time it is, now I think the pandemic is really pushing people to rethink education.
That's definitely interesting. I know when I had my interview with this particular school, that was something that they had brought up as far as rebuilding the school culture, of what, because all these students coming back are like you said, kind of rethinking or have a different idea of what they should be learning, or how should they be learning. And I'm really excited to just see what I can bring in the after school hours. One reason why I don't think I could be a teacher is because that I feel like there's these standards and stuff that I feel like I need to meet or have the students meet for me to continue being, or like for me to be seen as a good teacher, which I mean, I'm the same way where I don't think I break the rules, but there's definitely things that I try to work with the kids and see where they're at and try to work where they're at. And the difference between being a teacher and the role that I'm in is that they don't see me as that authoritative figure. They just see me as, oh, that's the adult guy in the after school program. So I feel like they're more open to me like introducing things to them, other than maybe a teacher who they see as somebody that's just going to tell them what to do. So for me it's a different challenge. But
I'm going to push your thinking on that, because I think the definition of a teacher is very limited, and I don't think a teacher, someone who tells students what to do, I don't think that's a teacher, right? That's just someone saying what to do. And I think teaching, I mean, when I look at you, and even this conversation, right, between you and you're teaching me something, right? I feel like I'm learning something from you. And I don't think you have to be one who's standing in front of a board, a whiteboard or computer in order to teach, but it is in our daily interactions. What am I learning from you? And so students are learning a significant amount from you, right? The title of, I think in the States, in the US, there's a very myopic definition of teacher compared to other countries where you have, you learn from your elders, you learn from the young people. These folks are teaching in a variety of ways. Now, if you're talking about then what are the teaching standards, the U.S. teaching standards in terms of what students are supposed to meet, what are those skill sets, what are those outcomes, I think that's very different, because I still think even the standards that are set for teachers to utilize and meet, I think most educators, most teachers don't do that well, because they're so stuck on I need to do this standard. And so, yes, I've taught the standard. So whether the child knows it or not becomes irrelevant, but I've taught the standard, right? So are you really teaching?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like when I say that, I feel like I break the rule in that because I question some of the methodologies that people articulate as good teaching. And so I look at teaching a lot more broadly. That you don't have to be a certified someone who has the degree of a certificate teacher to say that you are a teacher, because there's so many people who hold those certifications that are horrible teachers, and I wouldn't call them a teacher.
I got you. I feel like I've come across those people as well. And I definitely, I'm not a title person, but if I was going to choose a title, I like coach if anything, But yeah,
and coaches are great. I think coaches are I really feel I've had multiple coaches who work with me in different capacities, and I feel they are the best teachers because they're comprehensive in how they're looking at who are you, like who are you, Jen, as a person, right? What are your likes? What are your dislikes? They just look at the whole of the human being. They look at the young person holistically.
Sure. Well, thank you for reaffirming that for me, because that's definitely my approach, or at least I try. But all right, let's we have, just a heads up, we have about 10-15 minutes left in the conversation, and want to thank you again. I hope you're having fun. This has been a dream for me, so thank you.
I'm so enjoying this. I can't wait to tell Minnie.
Here we go, another spin, and you've got number 33.
Okay, what's 33?
What is your mission?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I really am. I was talking to a friend about 2 weeks ago, and he said to me that, oh, I know your mission is to start schools. And I was like, no, it's not. Right? It's not. I was like, no. I mean, there's some things that I do, right? But it's not. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Did you ever feel like at any point in your life that you knew it, and
No.
Never.
No, absolutely. I was, you know how you meet some people who like, my mission in life is to do A, B, and C, right? Mm-hmm. And I have always envied these people. I continue to envy them because I don't know, because I feel like my mission is constantly evolving. And I actually feel like even right now that I'm in this transition period in my life, as I'm trying to define what is my mission as a person who is now in her 50s, right? Mm-hmm. What is it that I'm trying to, what is my mission? I feel like I'm still discovering it.
I gotcha. I mean, it's interesting. I've never had I guess being a 10 makes me think that maybe you figured that out. So yeah. So I can't tell myself like, oh yeah, once I'm a 10, I'll know exactly what it is. I feel.
Because here's the thing, right? I think to me, a 10 is being able to know that I am not even sure what my mission is right now in my life, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And I think, again, when we think about even the number 10, right? It's supposed to be like perfect 10. It's not. I label myself as a 10 in terms of how well I know myself, because I am comfortable in my imperfection. And so therefore, I'm a 10 because I am so imperfect.
Yeah, and you're totally cool with that. Like that's something that I think I'm getting more comfortable with as I get older, and kind of, for me, I've always been kind of in denial, or not in denial, but I've been too focused on what I lack than what I can give. And as I've gotten older and have had all these jobs and been a part of all these teams, it's kind of helped me realize like what is it that I'm bringing, and what makes me, me versus everybody else. And knowing that is helping me accept those imperfections or the things that I lack. It's like, okay, well, now I know what I do have and what I don't have, or what I bring and what I don't bring. So yeah, I think that's a part of being a 10 or becoming a complete person, is just being aware of those things. But yeah, and
Yeah.
I forgot to ask you this in the very beginning, but what would you say is your favorite thing about your personality?
The favorite thing about my personality, I think I'm so much fun. I do. I really think I am so much fun. And I think that I am, I'm adaptable, I'm flexible. I'm the type of person that if I go into an environment that's unknown, I'm like, hey, let's try. Let's try it. Let's try it out.
Yeah.
And I don't mind trying new things. And I think that's a great part of my personality.
What's the last new thing that you tried, if you can remember? Yeah.
The last new thing that I tried, what did I do? What did we do? There are actually a few things. You know what I've been doing lately, and I think I've been doing a really good job because I was so intimidated by it, right? I've been coaching young executive leaders, and I was so intimidated because I was like, nah, I don't think I can. And people have been telling me for years, they're like, Irene, you should coach, you should, work with your leaders. I was like, absolutely not. And it's because, remember in the beginning when I said, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, right? And I find myself in this position right now where I'm coaching young leaders, and I'm able to use everything in my toolkit, the lessons I've learned, the areas where I'm really strong and great at, and even the areas where I've failed and not done well, like say, hey, here's something I did that did not work well, so here's what you need to think about. And so I think that's the most recent thing that I'm doing that's new, that I would say even 2 years ago I wouldn't have done it.
I gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
More stuff for me to keep in mind. And well, we made it to the finishing portion of 34 questions. Got a few closeout questions for you. This next one is, before we get there, there's a mantra that I want you to create on the show. There's 3 phrases, and just you gotta fill in the blanks, but is I am, I can, I will. So I am blank, I can blank, I will blank. How would you fill that in for yourself?
I am greater than I know. What's the next one?
I can.
I can do anything if I'm willing to take the risk.
And the last one's I will.
I will take the risk.
Gotcha. If you ever need a reminder, you have the sound bite of yourself telling yourself the things you can do, things that you are, things that you will do. And then my next question is from my previous guest. So shout out to Frida for your question. Her question.
Frida from Smash?
No, not Frida from Smash. No. just very serendipitous that Frida came to you. But Frida's question for you is, what power would you want? Like, if you could have any power, it doesn't have to be a superpower per se, but just anything that feels like you'd want as a boost or could be easier for you. What power would you want?
To heal. The power to heal.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Like through words, or like things that come out of your hands.
in whatever way I can. It could be through words. It could be touching people. It's to heal, to really heal. When I think about this world, and I think about how crazy it is right now, and I remember I used to always think about when I would read about Hitler, and I think about, well, how did people allow these things to happen, right? And I'm living in a time when I see just some horrible things happening. And I would love to be able to just heal people, whether it's healing our minds, healing our bodies. How do you heal so that we can be kind to each other?
That definitely makes me think of when there are so many crazy things happening, and people who are making these horrible things happen?
Hmm.
Is it coming from a place of pain where a healer could come in and kind of like be able to heal them so they don't try to cause other people pain or bring that negativity in? So yeah, I mean, healing would be actually maybe one of the best ones for the world. But I got you. My next question, my second to last question for you is, what would you like to ask the next guest that comes on to 34 Questions?
I thought about this question, and what would I like? Just how can we make a better world? I'm in this place right now, right? About God, how can we just make things better for one another? As you think about social responsibility, right? Because as I think about the pandemic, it seems like a lot of people are about self and not thinking about what's our responsibility to each other. And so, what is it that we can do as individuals and as community so that we are socially responsible for each other?
That's the heavy question, right? And it's like trying to get everybody on the same page is, I think, the most difficult thing, because I think about it a lot. And that reminds me, I got to tell you my real quick, in a nutshell, big idea to help with homelessness.
I was going to ask that because I wrote it down and I wanted to know, what is it, the big idea about helping with homelessness?
All right, so in my mind, this is what I imagine. I imagine maybe reusing some kind of parking structure, or maybe building one, but filling those spots up with like maybe cars that don't run anymore, so we can help take those cars that are able to be on the road and like refurbish them so people can have a place to sleep in different parking spots. It's not permanent. It's just a temporary thing, because in the parking structures, there's going to be different services on each level. So maybe like a mental health, maybe job searching, career coaching. And then ties everything together is that I have to kind of go out there and find like people in the homelessness communities who are leaders, and kind of present to them like, hey, this is something that I want you guys to run, and like show that this is a community that's from people who've experienced it, and kind of know what people really need. Because I feel like me coming in and say, hey, here, I'm gonna run it, it's not gonna hit the same, and I wouldn't want to either, because I don't think I could understand the stories and struggles from those folks. But in a nutshell, that's what I would like to see kind of formulate or come upon. And I don't know if anyone out there is going to hear this and be like, oh, let's give it a shot or try. But yeah, that's really what I want to pitch out there, But yeah.
I think that's a brilliant idea, and I actually seen it come to fruition in that I think you can get seed money, and I think someone's going to jump on this idea if it's not you. I even see you pursuing that in terms of getting some seed money because you can find a parking structure that's not huge to island it, right? And because some of what you mentioned in terms of using old cars, because with a lot of people complain about the homelessness. There are things such as like, well, we have these facilities and they don't want to be there, but many of the homeless people will say, well, the rules and expectations. And I think with using old cars, it still allows people to have a space that's their own. And even walking around and looking at a lot of the homeless encampments, right? There is a level of order there, and there is a system. They used to deliver food to just various areas. And there's a system, and there are key people who take the lead. And I think that's a brilliant idea. So whomever's out there listening, if Jen doesn't do it himself, please, someone, this is a brilliant idea. Please, I would say pilot it and let's see.
And just let me know. I would just put my name on the paper somewhere. I don't need to be the face of it. But yeah, well, thank you for the affirmation, because I've talked to this with a few people, and some people who work in the homeless industry, but homeless I don't even know what to call it, but in that space they work in it, and they've told me, I guess they're like, well, how do you know people really want to do that? Do they really feel like sleeping in a tent on the street there's an upgrade to like sleeping in a car in a parking structure? But I think it is an upgrade. Like if I was in that position, I think yeah, I would want to be in a place that feels a little more solid and more like it's an environment that's a community. And I know that in my mind too, it's like going to be a 6-month stay or a year stay, depending on how long it takes for them to get back up on their feet or like find a job. I feel like they can't leave until they find a job, which would be super important. But yeah, all right, well, we could stop there. We could talk about this more another time. And I got the last question for you, the question that ties everything together. 100, maybe 150, 200 years from now, your great descendants are watching this. What would you like to tell them?
I would like to tell them, it's actually, there are a couple of things I'd like to tell them. One would always be about, again, how can we make this world better? How can we do good with each other, right? I would also like to tell, which I think is really critical, is this Audre Lorde quote, and actually wrote down so I don't misquote it, that if I didn't define myself for myself, I would be crunched into other people's fantasies for me and eaten alive, right? So how do you define yourself for yourself? But in doing so, how do you also take into consideration other people? And how do we work to support how do we work to support each other? And looking back, so 100 years, 200 years from now, build upon the things that we did well and try not to make the mistakes that we've made, because I feel like we continue to make the same mistakes, so let's find a way to stop making the same mistakes and just continue to move forward and do good for each other.
I got you. Please heed those words, because I think that's one of the things that reason why we continue to make the same mistakes is that we always think it's so far away, like those, when it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not. We're not that too far apart from the 100 years ago. So I think even 100 years later, I hope that we are building upon the things that we are doing well. Because I don't know, maybe you've seen this change in this next generation of kids, but man, I'm kind of excited to see where they take society and the world. I know there's also that other side to it though. Wait, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's when you look at all of the protests that happened during the pandemic and the worldwide protests, right, is you have a generation of young people who are really fighting for change. And I think what's important is your need for change cannot stop with just a protest, right? How do you move into action? Because it has to move into policies that can impact change. And so being able to do the work, and a lot of that work happens behind the scenes, because we do have a lot of young people who say, no, we want to change, but we need just as many people who are doing the work to make sure that change occurs.
For sure. Any last things you'd like to add before we head out of here?
I have so enjoyed this with you, Jan. It is. I love talking to you. I think this is a wonderful thing. It brings me back to my gut. When you were 15 and 16, you all started doing podcasts. You remember podcasting? I think you were one of the young people who were involved in podcasts, and then to see the evolution of it and see your involvement right now. And I always love when young people whom I've worked with go into working with other young people, because I feel like it's payback.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely turned some of my hair gray. I got you.
You're so great, and I just love what you're doing. I'm so proud of you. You're doing some wonderful work. This is truly fantastic and phenomenal.
Thank you for the kind words, Dr. St. Roseman. Definitely appreciate you having you on. Like I said in the beginning, you're like a celebrity in my mind, so it's a big deal for me to have you on here.
Or
I'm sure my folks too, once they see this, like, I'm gonna tell my mom right
yes,
now
oh,
and be
I
like,
can't.
hey, I
Yes,
just talked to her. Yeah, she's been
I
looking
love
forward to
your
it too.
parents. I love them.
I mean, I love them too. But yeah. Well, I want to thank you again for stopping by, being open to share your perspective and your story. I definitely appreciate it. And I want to thank all the folks out there as well. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or watching on YouTube, appreciate your time as well. Remember to reach out, reach forward. As always, much love, and we'll catch you guys next time on 34 Questions. Peace.
Peace. All right. Take care. Bye.
And that was it. So yeah, that was the end of it. If